The time is now to start a journey to find true freedom. Break the chains. Become God's best. This is Freedom Quest with Terry Baxter.
Now, one of the things that's important, if you go through a total transition of your gender, you come out on the other side. It doesn't matter if you're a male transitioning to a female or a female to a male, you come out sterile. You're no longer able to have children. You're no longer able to give that gift of life to someone else. Were you ever counseled in that direction? Be careful where you're going because it might cause irreparable damage?
I was told that if I did go down that path, there would be a way to reverse it eventually if I chose to do that, which is a lie. They tell you that with the hormones, you can completely reverse it. There are people who have been doing hormones. You'll see their stories online, and they'll still have low voices. They'll have medical issues that they will have to deal with when they detransition. Same goes for if you get like a double mastectomy. If you want to be a male, they'll tell you, oh, you can change it. You can just get implants, fix it, all that kind of stuff. But the truth is, you'll never, like you said, you'll never be able to have children. You will never truly actually be fixed, or the damage will not truly be reversed.
Once your antenna is alert to this and you're out in public, you'll start picking up on situations where I'm going to call them coaches, start gathering around young people. They bring them into their circles. They'll take them out to restaurants, and they'll become their emotional support network. And they actually work to run interference with anybody from a Christian background that might want to have some kind of input into their life. And it becomes very intense. I'm going to say this, within the Christian community, we do not have a support network for people that are Christians that even come close to what Satan and the world has for people who are moving into this to make sure they go all the way down that road. Now, I want to tell you a quick story. I was out with my wife, and we had a couple of our grandkids, and one of the children that was with us was a newborn. And as we walked into this restaurant, I picked up very quickly that there were two women next to us. They had 3 teenagers with them, and I could just tell by the atmosphere and having been in ministry for years what was going on. And wanting to give a message to these young people, I did something very unique. They were sitting on the booth right behind us. We were here and I was here. I took our newborn baby, and I lifted the newborn baby up on my shoulder, and I had the baby look over the booth at these 3 teenagers. Immediately, 2 things happened. All of those 3 teenagers were just glued on this baby. Oh, Guga, oh, this is so beautiful. This is so wonderful. The other thing that happened, the 2 ladies that were coaches got very angry at me. I really didn't care. I was planting a seed that's very important. And then at just the right time, I said, just think, someday you can have a baby just like this. You see, what I was doing in a subliminal way, I was taking Psalm 139, and I was introducing to these, and one was a boy, there were 2 girls in that setting, and I would put them maybe early high school. I'm going to say 10th grade, possibly 9th grade, to see them light up at that newborn baby. But to see these women get mad and angry, and what happened was really interesting. Their time in the restaurant ended abruptly. They quickly cut that off. They grabbed those young people and they ushered them out of there. There are situations where coaching is taking place around us all the time out in public. And I will guarantee you, those were not the parents of those teenagers. Now, here's the thing, and I want to give a warning. I want to give a warning to the young people that are here. And you're being introduced to these concepts in school or with friends or whatnot. Pray for truth. You shall know the truth shall set you free, and it's God's truth. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And you might be here, and this might not be your issue. You might be struggling with other things in your life. And I've discovered, and I've worked for years, I've been in ministry for 50 years. I've worked in hundreds of Bible camps as camp speaker. I've worked pastoring churches. I've been able to minister in different contexts. All people at some point have struggles with, I'm a mistake. There's something wrong with me. God doesn't love me. I don't fit in. I've got no value. I believe those thoughts come from spiritual warfare. I believe Satan plants those. They're the fiery darts that he shoots inside of people. This area that we're talking about with gender identity is going after that like a vengeance today. Like a vengeance today. And, you know, as I was talking last night a little bit, some of the people came back and said, well, I don't see spiritual warfare taking place. This is one of the fronts today that every family is going to be touched by, every community it's happening in, every church is going to have people that are affected by this area. So I just want to take a moment and let's talk about the church. You mentioned that you accepted Christ and that brought your big change, but I assume from your background, your parents were Christians and they were going to church.
Yes.
How did the church respond to you when they saw you starting to drift in that direction?
Towards the gender identity. So when we first started going to church, I was already like socially transitioned, and my mom made me go to youth group, and they were welcoming. They didn't agree with the name I wanted to be called. They would call me by my God-given birth name, and so they were kind, but they didn't. And they didn't attack me about anything. They just treated me like I was a person, and I thought it was weird, because I was like, I feel like I've never been treated like this before. I've just had like either the extremes who are telling me and yelling at me and saying, you shouldn't be doing this, and then I also have these other people who are in this church telling me, well, we love you, and we don't agree with you, but you're welcome here, and you're family with us.
How important were those seeds for you? That there are people out there who love me for who I am without going down this road. Was that important for you to see that there are people that love and affirm you as a person?
Yes. It's like largely due to the fact that I was even going to youth group, that I had the courage to like jump in completely and give my life to Christ. And I actually did end up getting baptized 2 weeks after I gave my life to Christ. And it was like coming up a completely new person. But these people, like when I told them the Wednesday after like I had my encounter with God that I was leaving behind my old self, and which also it talks about it in the Bible in 2 Corinthians 5:17, another good Bible verse. But when I left behind my old self, they gave me like this standing ovation, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're so proud of you. And there was hugs, they prayed for me, and it was just like, I felt like I was home, like it was like a family.
Amen, that is so important. Church, people are struggling. Reach out, love them, affirm them. Don't be judgmental, don't push them away. We've got to reach out to people and love on them. You mentioned the name that you want to be called. What was that name, by the way?
I usually don't actually share it to, because I don't want people to use it against me. It was Max. It was a name that I had that, because I really admired this cosplayer, because I'm a nerd. I like nerdy things. And that was another front in which I used to basically pretend I wasn't myself by dressing up as like fictional characters. So I took that person that I really admired and I used that name to build this identity.
Well, why is the use of a name so important with the transition in changing your identity? Why does that, I'm going to say, automatically happen where people want to adopt a masculine name if they're transitioning that way or a feminine name? But why is that, do you think, significant that the enemy wants to do that?
Our names hold meaning. Oftentimes, like your parents may give you a name because it specifically holds like a meaning or a purpose that they want over your life. My name actually means Lion of God. So obviously that's the first thing the enemy wants to get rid of, any association with God. And so that was the most like mundane name that could have been given to me, Max. It was like a dog's name.
You know, it was special when I first heard your story and heard your God-given name. It was very special to me. God has blessed us with a number of children. We had 9 children, lost one to a genetic condition called trisomy 13 at birth. But one of our grandchildren is named Ariella, the same name that you have. And you are the only other Ariella I've ever met. So when I heard your name, I went, oh, this is so cool. This is so neat. And it's an automatic kinship. I thought, oh, this is just like my granddaughter. I thought that was just so special. So special. Let's take a moment, and I just want to touch on something. When you accepted Jesus, we're talking about names. Jesus gives us a new name written down in glory. And that name could be called Christian, Christ. Basically, I am Christ. How important is that name when you accepted Jesus to recognize a whole new identity? You already talked about 2 Corinthians 5:17, but talk for a moment about that new identity that Jesus gave you.
It was freeing. It was like a burden had been pulled off of me. Like I had an elephant on my chest and it was gone. I had this experience at a camp like a couple of weeks after where I was delivered of anxiety, and so now I was given the opportunity to go and speak, and now I can do these things because God continued to work in me and build my identity in Him, and He gives me these opportunities and continues to grow me in my faith so that I can know Him and I can share His love with people, and I like that a lot more than what I was dealing with before, because I'm not depressed anymore. I'm not worrying about, when I look in the mirror, am I going to see, am I going to see someone that I like? Because now every morning I wake up, I look in the mirror, I think of Psalm 139, and I'm like, God, you put me on this earth for a reason. You're giving me these opportunities to go and share who you are. That is my identity in you. And I would continue to build that identity how you want me to.
One of the things in conversing a little bit with your mother, she said that when you were younger, you couldn't talk in front of people for anything.
No.
You were shy, you were reserved, and then you accepted Jesus, and all of a sudden it's like you became very fluent, sharing Jesus every place you go and whatnot. Let's talk a little bit about that. What's changed since you came to Jesus?
All anxiety has been broken off. I don't go up to somebody and fear if they're gonna, hate me or fear what they're thinking about me. I can have a conversation with somebody, maybe be a little nervous, but I feel like it's normal to be nervous, but it's not like a constant, I physically cannot get myself up out of bed or into that room because somebody is there or a group of people is there. God just completely took who I thought I was and what I was dealing with, met me where I was, and helped me get out of that hole that I was in and build me in Him.
Well, would Jesus do that to anyone who turns to Him and accepts Christ? That was so fluent. What you just said, I wish I'd written that. I would have loved to have credit for that. That was just an awesome testimony of what Jesus does. But does Jesus promise that to everyone?
Yes. Everyone has that opportunity, but you have to be open to accepting it. He gives us free will, as we know. Genesis talks about it. So He can't force us into a relationship with Him. We have to open that door first, or else He's not going to be able to get into our hearts. Like when I cried out to Him that night, that was me opening that door and giving Him an opportunity to come in and change who I thought I was, to live through Him. We have to be willing to do that and sacrifice the things that maybe we enjoyed having or the things that we're scared to lose and to get bigger blessings in the future.
Wow, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. This is the flip side of spiritual warfare. And that's what the Holy Spirit does in someone's life to transform them and change them. When the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you shall receive power and shall be witnesses. Now, coming from your story and your background, obviously, you're a senior in high school.
I am.
And I'm going to say that. This impresses me as a senior in high school, okay? I love what I'm hearing. This is awesome. So you're going through the day, and with your background, can you discern or see other students that are kind of in your sandals where you were? How many students are working through struggles like that in your school?
I'd say about 90% of the kids in my school have some form of either acceptance, whether or not they're religious, towards those people and just don't want to do anything about it or agree with those things, or they are actively participating in gender ideology and sexual ideology. And it's really easy to, once you know what to look for, it's really easy to figure out, if they're partaking in those things. Like, you can go out and see strangers on the street and you're like, that's a person who is likely dealing with gender ideology. It's just like the way they carry themselves, and especially if you have really good spiritual discernment, you can there's an air about them that's very heavy, very depressive, and it almost feels like a weight, like is being in their presence.
So has God given you a love and compassion for other young people in your school that are going through these struggles? And how does that affect you and your relationship with them and your conduct toward them?
So I actually have been able to reach out to a few people who are in those communities. I had a friend recently who gave her life to Christ and she is going to youth group with me. And she originally believed in those things, but she's starting to backpedal, and she just recently got a Bible, and it's given me the opportunity to reach out to these people because I've been in their situation and I know what they're going through. And a lot of it starts in the home as well. A lot of these kids are experiencing parents who are going through a divorce or separated parents. They're missing a parent from the home. And oftentimes, a lot of the times, it's their father that's missing. They don't have an authority figure in their life to build that expectation of what a father is like. And so they don't run to the father because they don't have a representation of the father.
And I want to just touch on this. We're living in a culture with broken families. Now, we're not going to get into that subject today on broken families. But I believe that Satan has an agenda to destroy families because he can destroy that next generation through those broken families. This is huge. Now, I want to say this. Sometimes when we talk about spiritual warfare, people get the idea that spiritual warfare is just ghost busting. I say that tongue in cheek. Spiritual warfare is everyday practical stuff all around us. It's the enemy at work trying to destroy lives. And that's very huge. I want to backpedal for a moment. When you accepted Jesus and you went back to your home and you told your parents, what happened with that relationship with you and your parents? Were they happy to hear what you had done?
Yes, they were very supportive of me. My mom actually started reading the Bible with me every night to introduce me to, getting into the Word. And we started in Ephesians because she wanted to encourage me to start somewhere that was simple, easy to figure out. And I believe it is in Ephesians where it talks about the armor of God. And that was one of my favorite areas of the Bible when I first came to Christ, because it gave me the strength to push through even when I was getting all of the pushback from people who didn't agree with this new spiritual transition in my life.
Now, when you went through your acceptance of Christ and your conversion, it was pretty profound. a lot of people who are coming away from different areas of identity crisis after they're accepting Christ, they can have ongoing thoughts, ongoing temptations and struggles and that kind of thing. It can also happen to people who have pornography addiction, people who have different things. Did you have, and it's been 2 years now, is that correct? Yes. Did you have some struggles early on, wondering if you had made the right move to accept Jesus and transition back? What kind of thoughts was Satan putting in your mind?
I was, first of all, fearful that maybe what I was doing, was it real? That maybe God wasn't real, but I had people around me who were very encouraging and reminded me that what God did for me was very real, and that the enemy will put those things in your head to try to push you away and get you back into the hole that he had you in to begin with, because he doesn't want you to come close to the Father, because he knows what plans the Father has for you.
Now, you're mentioning the Father, and I find that encouraging, but it's the Father image of God. What does that mean to you when you say coming toward the Father? Could you kind of unpack that for us a little bit?
So when I refer to God as the Father, it's because he is our Father, and I see him as like, that's our dad, that's our papa, that's our ultimate Father up in heaven. And he is the ultimate representation of what a father could be on earth or should represent. And so when I refer to that, I refer to like an authority figure who is kind, gentle, and is also willing to help you out of a situation. So just a father, somebody who's able to comfort and come to you in need.
We're going to, in a little bit here, ask some questions and allow people to respond by asking you some things. But I just want to throw another area out to you. There are a lot of people today in our culture who are struggling with these things. When I proposed a bill in the Iowa legislature on this subject, I got a lot of hate mail. You can imagine. My email lit up because I was saying that you couldn't do any kind of therapy until someone was an adult. One of the surprising couples that got a hold of me came from a background with a husband. They were married, they had 5 children. He started transitioning to a female with his wife's support. And he got a hold of me and said, "Terry, we want to talk to you." And I actually thought, oh boy, this is going to be an interesting meeting. I'm going to get screamed at like crazy. And we met in a private setting as myself and 2 other legislators. And they reached out and said, "We 100% support your bill." I found that very interesting. And they said, this is the reason why. Many times when someone starts transitioning, okay, even if they're going down some of the hormone therapy, they'll have second thoughts. And they'll want to move back toward the direction that God created them. But if they go through very evasive measures with surgery and changing their body, it's too late. And their encouragement was, there are people who can be going down this road for 3 or 4 or 5 years, especially starting in elementary school and high school, and then make the big change of heart, saying, no, I don't want to go that way. I want to have what God gave me. And for many, it's too late at that period of time. And they said, we absolutely support you. We absolutely support you. From your background, do you find that to be true, that there are people who start down that journey and then they go through a time where they realize, I don't want this. I want to have what I gave away?
Yes. There's actually a really good example of this situation. Chloe Cole, some of you might know her, but she goes around and speaks. She's also a detransitioner. And when she was a child, she actually went through medical transition to remove her breasts. And we had the opportunity to host her in Iowa. But she talks about it very well. And there is a big, especially in these recent years, a spike in people who are detransitioning and looking at this and saying, this isn't helping me. This isn't fixing, the depression I was experiencing or the anxiety that I was experiencing. It's making it worse or keeping me where I am. And whether it's for religious reasons or not, there are a lot of people who really want to backpedal on it. There's been, like, especially on social media, it won't push it to you. You have to look for it. But there's lots of people who have gone through these medical transitions who talk about how they were left behind by the community and by these doctors and not told where to go or what to do to fix themselves or help themselves.
So when you say left behind, you're talking about being abandoned?
Yeah.
After the fact? Wow. Let's assume that you are working with someone and you are going to try to give them some material so they can really have some truth and some other side of this picture. Do you have any resources that you recommend to people? For example, if I'm getting to know someone in my youth group or whatnot, what can I hand to them in a non-threatening, loving way that they can put some resources of truth in their hand to have more input on what they're going through? Do you have some?
The Bible. That's my first thing that I do when I approach people about this topic is I introduce them to the Bible, specifically like Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Ephesians, and Corinthians, because those all have great verses of encouragement in them. Deuteronomy has a lot of verses about fear, and a lot of this stuff with transition is fear of accepting who you are and learning to love who you are. So that's really the only reference I give people is just run to God, you know.
Now, you were sharing with me just a little bit when you got here, and we talked last night, that you've been involved with the Iowa legislature a little bit. And was it this last year that there was a gathering at the Capitol? What was that all about, and what's happening in that movement?
So there's this movement called Don't Mess With Our Kids, and they went around last year in April, actually on my birthday, and it was the first ever speaking event that I did, where throughout the nation, every state went to their capital, shared testimonies, and preached the gospel outside of their capital buildings, and we talked about basically stop the gender madness, leave our kids alone, that kind of stuff. And I had the opportunity to share my testimony, and I had parents reach out to me, or people from my church who came up to me and asked me to pray for them, for their kids. And you don't realize how many people are, really experiencing that. There was actually a few states where guns were brought by people from the LGBTQ community, and those people, I can't remember what state it was. You could probably find it somewhere, but they had people who brought guns and were like dressed up in pride flags and all that kind of stuff, and they prayed over these people from a distance, and that entire crowd, they were confused because, like, we're threatening you, we have guns, we're coming to, like, we're trying to scare you. But these people who were in that state at their capital welcomed those people, and those people actually came, and there was a lot of people there who actually accepted Christ into their life on that day. And so that's what that movement seeks to do, is reach out to these people who are in those situations